Hi, welcome to the module of Programming Logic and Techniques, also known as PLT. In this module of Iteration 0, let's get an insight of programming and then look into details of PLT. At the end of this session, you should be able to write solutions independent of programming languages, improve analytical skills, convert logical thinking into coding, identify multiple solutions for a given problem, and identify optimized solution among them. Are we ready? Let's get started. Here we'll discuss two types of programming, learn how to write a pseudocode, understand good programming techniques followed by software engineers, learn how to analyze a problem, learn how to translate a mathematical logic to improve analytical skills and convert the logical thinking into pseudocode. You will also be able to see how we can identify the optimized solution when you identify multiple solutions for a given problem. Amongst the various programming paradigms available in software engineering today, it is very important to note two key paradigms: structured programming and object-oriented programming. What is structured programming? In structured programming, developers map out the overall program structure into separate subsections from top to bottom. Therefore, it follows a top-down design model. A top-down design means that the whole program is broken down into smaller sections that are called modules. A program may have one module or several modules. Structured programming is beneficial for organizing and coding computer programs which use a hierarchy of modules. This means that control is passed downwards only through hierarchy. Examples of structured programming languages include Ada, Pascal, Fortran, COBOL, and so on. Now let's see what is object-oriented programming. The object-oriented approach refers to a special type of programming approach that combines data with functions to create what is known as objects. If you are wondering what's an object is anything in the computer system that is capable of responding to messages. Object-oriented programming paradigm views the systems and programs as a collection of interactions between objects where each object has a relationship with other objects. One of the earliest object-oriented programming languages is Smalltalk. Java, Visual Basic, and C++ are the most popular object-oriented programming languages today. We need to understand that to solve any business domain problem, we can use any programming language. To achieve that, we need to identify the solution through a pseudocode. A pseudocode is an independent of any programming language. Now that we know what is pseudocode, let's try to understand and see what it helps with. A pseudocode is a formal representation of programming language in a language independent manner. It supports all the basic programming constructs like conditional statement and iterations used in almost all the programming languages. Now, is this the only way? No, this is not the only way to represent the solution. There are other techniques too, namely flowchart and algorithm. A flowchart is a type of diagram that represents an algorithm, workflow, or process, showing the steps as boxes of various kinds and their order by connecting them with arrows. This diagrammatic representation illustrates a solution model to a given problem. So if you just see here, we have taken this scenario of finding the sum of two numbers. So if you want to start any flowchart, so start with a rectangle symbol followed by a parallelogram where we are taking the input num1 and num2 followed by finding the sum that is normally for performing any computations, followed by this displaying the statements, that means any output. Finally, we are stopping it. So you can see that at each stages we are representing by connecting to arrows. So that says what are the different steps being followed. Next, what's an algorithm? An algorithm is a process or set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem solving operations, especially by a computer. So with this, we know what are the different ways of representing a solution. Suppose if I have to represent a solution by using pseudocode, which is independent of programming language, how does it look like? A pseudocode begins with a keyword start followed by declarations. The declaration captures the domain data by declaring the variables along with its data type. After declaring the variables, we write processing statements to perform operations like accepting values or displaying messages to the end user, or processing statements to solve given problem, and end with keyword stop. Now to understand this in a little better way, let's perform addition of two numbers using pseudocode method. So you can make out that there is a start keyword followed by declaring all the variables. As our objective is to perform summation of two numbers, let's declare two variables, namely num1, that is num1, to capture the first number value, num2, num2, to capture the second number value. To find the sum of these two numbers, we shall declare another variable sum that holds sum of these two numbers for better readability. Any business domain problem contains a lot of data. By analyzing the requirement, we identify data to be captured and specific data types supported by the programming languages used today. Now some of these data types are integer, double, character and string. Let's say we capture age of a person, then we can declare a variable age of integer data type. Suppose we capture salary of an employee, then we declare a variable salary of data type double as it supports floating values. When building a menu driven program, let's say the end user may proceed or terminate the program execution by entering an alphabet Y to indicate choice yes, or alphabet N to indicate choice no, with data type char that is capable of holding a single character. To capture the end user's name, we can declare a variable name to represent a sequence of characters which can be supported by a data type string. After declaring all the variables, never forget to end the statement with symbol semicolon. Normally, whenever we create any program, we can also define initial values for the variables. We can assign default values for all these different data types. For instance, we can assign 0 for integer type, 0.0 for double. For char, we can use single quotes, and for string, we can use double quotes as the default values. As a programmer, we are going to write lots of code. Hence, we must follow certain rules that will help us be better in our programming. Some of the rules to remember are: number 1, we cannot just write good code to solve a given problem, but we must also comply to its corresponding syntax. Number 2, any code written must use good naming convention for all the variables declared, so it is easy to maintain it in the future. Number 3, indentation is mandatory. That helps any other users, including the author of the code, also improves the readability of the code for debugging. Number 4, never forget to test your code by using simple testing technique called the dry run technique. Overall, to produce a good quality code, the programmer must have the ability to test their code, which is as critical as writing the code itself. Let's see what is dry run technique. Dry run is one of the most powerful techniques through which we can easily determine any logic is correct or wrong. All we need to do here is to identify all the variables declared, follow the trace and all the steps written in the code to see the change of values, and finally check the output, which are the display statements written in the code. Let's try to apply the dry run for the example of finding the sum of two numbers discussed earlier. There are three variables declared: num1 num1 and num2 num2 for capturing the input data, and a variable called sum to find the summation of these two numbers. The next statement is accept as an end user if the end user wants to enter two values 45 or 65. Then num1 will be saved with integer value 45 and num2 will be saved with the integer value 65. The next statement is finding the summation. Then the variables num1 and num2 are added and stored in a variable sum, and hence the sum becomes 110, which is simple addition of num1 and num2 with values 45 and 65 respectively. At last we have the display statement displaying sum, in which our case it is 110.